The coffee shop fell silent except for the cruel laughter echoing off the walls. Marcus Chen stood frozen near the counter, his 5-year-old daughter Emma clutching his leg, tears streaming down her small face. The cup of hot chocolate he'd just paid for lay shattered on the floor, its contents spreading across the tile like a brown stain of humiliation. The man who'd deliberately bumped into him, a stocky figure with a sneer carved into his face, stood there grinning, surrounded by two friends who seemed to feed off the chaos like vultures circling wounded prey. "Maybe if you weren't so busy playing mommy, you'd know how to hold a cup," the bully spat, his voice dripping with contempt. His eyes fixed on Marcus with that particular brand of cruelty reserved for those who mistake kindness for weakness. Marcus felt Emma's grip tighten. He'd seen that look in her eyes before, the night her mother walked out, leaving nothing but a note on the kitchen table and an emptiness that still echoed through their small apartment. His daughter didn't need to witness more pain. She'd already seen enough for a lifetime at 5 years old. "It's okay, sweetheart," Marcus whispered, kneeling beside Emma despite the hot chocolate soaking into his worn jeans. These were his only clean pair. He'd have to wash them tonight after Emma fell asleep, hang them over the radiator, and pray they'd be dry by his morning shift at the warehouse. Accidents happen. Accidents. The bully stepped closer, his boots crunching on broken ceramic. "The only accident here is you trying to raise a kid by yourself. Where's mommy?" Finally got smart and left. The cafe patrons shifted uncomfortably in their seats. A woman in a business suit suddenly found her phone fascinating. An elderly couple stared into their coffee cups. A barista wiped the same spot on the counter 3 times, eyes down. This was the unspoken rule of modern society: don't get involved, don't make waves, pretend you don't see what's happening 2 feet away. Marcus stood slowly, positioning himself between Emma and the bully. His voice remained steady, almost gentle. "I'm sorry if we've upset you. We'll just clean this up and get out of your way." "Damn right you will." The bully's finger jabbed toward Marcus's chest but never made contact. Something in Marcus's eyes, some distant warning sign that flickered like a candle in a dark room, made the man's hand falter midair. What the bully couldn't know, what nobody in that cafe could see, was the story written in the scars hidden beneath Marcus's faded sweater. The years of classified missions across 3 continents. The nights spent in places where mercy was a luxury and survival was the only currency that mattered. The training that had transformed a scared teenager from rural Ohio into something most people only saw in movies. Delta Force didn't make soldiers. It made ghosts who learned to move through the world with deadly precision, who could read a room faster than most people could read a menu, who understood that true strength wasn't found in intimidation but in restraint. Marcus had left that life behind the day Emma was born. He'd held her tiny body in his hands and made a promise: she would never know violence, never feel the weight of fear, never grow up in the shadow of what he'd been trained to do. When his wife Sarah left, unable to cope with his nightmares and the darkness he sometimes brought home, Marcus doubled down on that promise. Emma would have a normal life, even if it killed him to provide it. "Listen, buddy," one of the bully's friends chimed in, emboldened by the crowd's silence. "Maybe you should take your kid and—" He never finished the sentence. The cafe's front door burst open with such force that the little bell above it shattered. 3 men stormed in, their faces covered with bandanas, one wielding a baseball bat, another waving a knife that caught the afternoon light. The third held what appeared to be a gun. Nobody moved. Phones on the tables, wallets out, now. The cafe erupted into chaos. Screams pierced the air. Chairs scraped against the floor as people dove under tables. The businesswoman dropped her phone, hands shaking. The elderly couple clutched each other. The barista's face drained of all color. The bully who'd been so bold seconds ago stumbled backward, his swagger evaporating like steam. His friends scattered to opposite corners, suddenly very interested in becoming invisible. But Marcus didn't move. His body language shifted in a way so subtle that most wouldn't notice: weight redistributed, stance widened by inches, center of gravity lowered. His breathing slowed. That old training kicked in like muscle memory, like riding a bicycle down a hill with no brakes. Emma whimpered, and that sound, that tiny expression of fear from his daughter, flipped a switch that had been gathering dust for 5 years. "Emma," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying a tone she'd never heard before. It wasn't angry. It wasn't scared. It was something else entirely: absolute calm in the eye of a hurricane. "Close your eyes and count to 20. Don't open them until I tell you. Can you do that for Daddy? But, trust me, baby girl. Close your eyes. She squeezed them shut, her small hands covering her face. The man with the baseball bat approached the elderly couple, his weapon raised. I said wallets. Are you deaf, old man? Marcus moved. What happened next would later be described by witnesses as something between a magic trick and a nightmare. 1 second Marcus was standing by the counter. The next, he'd crossed 15 feet of space in what seemed like a single breath. The baseball bat spun through the air, no longer in the attacker's hands. The man himself was on the ground, gasping, his arm bent at an angle that suggested he wouldn't be gripping anything for several months. The man with the knife lunged forward, but Marcus had already anticipated the movement. He sidestepped with the grace of a dancer, caught the extended arm, applied pressure to 3 specific points, and suddenly the knife was clattering to the floor. The attacker followed it down, his wrist screaming in pain. The third man, the one with the gun, raised it with shaking hands. Don't move or all. Marcus's eyes locked onto his. In that gaze, the gunman saw something that made his blood freeze. This wasn't some random cafe patron. This was a predator, and the predator had just decided the hunting season was over. That's not a real gun, Marcus said calmly, still standing between the chaos and his daughter. It's a lighter shaped like a pistol. I can see the fuel chamber from here. You bought it at a truck stop off Interstate 70, probably thought it would be enough to scare people. Put it down. The man's hand trembled. The gun fell to the floor with a plastic clatter. Now sit down against that wall, all 3 of you, hands visible. Don't move. Don't speak. The police are already on their way. Marcus hadn't seen anyone call the police, but he knew human nature, someone had definitely called. The 3 would-be robbers sat, defeated, unable to comprehend what had just happened. The entire encounter had lasted maybe 20 seconds. Emma, you can open your eyes now. She peeked through her fingers, saw her father standing there unharmed. Saw the bad men sitting quietly against the wall looking scared and confused. Daddy, are you a superhero? Marcus knelt down, pulled her into a hug that said everything words couldn't. No, baby. Just your dad. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing closer. The cafe remained frozen, everyone processing what they'd witnessed. The bully who'd mocked Marcus minutes ago sat in the corner, his face pale, his earlier confidence completely evaporated. As police officers rushed through the door, Marcus gave a clear, concise statement, helped identify the attackers, and declined any special recognition. He just wanted to take his daughter home. But before he could leave, the elderly man he'd protected approached, his wife beside him. Young man, he said, his voice thick with emotion. Thank you. You saved us all. Anyone would have done the same, Marcus replied. No, the old woman said firmly, taking Marcus's hand in both of hers. They wouldn't have. Most people would have hidden. You stood up. She pressed something into his palm, $100 bill. For your daughter. Buy her something special. Marcus tried to refuse, but she insisted. Others approached too. The barista brought out a fresh hot chocolate for Emma and a coffee for Marcus, on the house. The businesswoman apologized for not speaking up earlier, pressed her card into his hand, said her company was hiring warehouse managers if he was interested, better pay, benefits, future. And the bully. He stood at a distance, watching, perhaps understanding for the first time that strength wasn't about size or volume or cruelty. It was about what you did when it mattered, about protecting those who couldn't protect themselves, about standing up when everything in the world told you to sit down. As Marcus and Emma walked out of the cafe hand in hand, she looked up at him with those big curious eyes. Daddy, why were you so brave? Marcus thought about all the missions, all the training, all the years he'd spent learning how to be dangerous. And he thought about this little girl, this perfect human being who made everything else in his life make sense. Because, sweetheart, when you love someone, you find strength you didn't know you had. That's what parents do. That's what real heroes do, they protect the people they love. Emma smiled, took a sip of her hot chocolate, and swung their joined hands as they walked toward the bus stop. In the window reflection, Marcus caught a glimpse of the man he used to be and the man he'd become. They weren't so different after all. Both were warriors. One fought enemies on foreign soil. The other fought every day to give his daughter a life worth living. The Delta Force training hadn't made him a hero. Love had. And that was a power no amount of combat training could ever teach.